Hi class, welcome to the third part of our biochemistry review in preparation for your periodic examination. For the first two parts, we were able to discuss the enzymology as well as the pathway that involves the glucose or your pentose phosphate pathway. For our third discussion, we will be dealing with the metabolism of other monosaccharides and disaccharides. So sabi ng mga other sugars ninyo, parang paano naman kami? I-discuss nyo din kami. Wag lang kayo mag-focus kay glucose, ma'am. Okay, so here we go. The metabolism of other monosaccharides and disaccharides starts with your fructose. Fructose is found in the diet as a component of sucrose in fruit, as a free sugar in honey, and in high fructose corn syrup. Your fructose enters epithelial cells and other types of cells by facilitated diffusion on the GLUT5 transporter. So if you will recall our discussion in regards to the diffusion, we have simple and facilitated. So kung babalikan po yung discussion kay facilitated diffusion, alin-alin po yung mga molecules na maaaring pumasok kay diffusion or kay cell by means of facilitated diffusion. Nabigay nating example ay yung mga waters. Okay, yung mga sugars mo such as glucose and other ions. Through facilitated diffusion, meron po silang tinatawag na facilitator. Parang meron silang transporter na tinatawag para makapasok sila doon sa cell. So by this means, the fructose's means of entering your cells is through the GLUT5 transporter. It needs a transporter for it to be able to enter your cells. Hindi siya katulad ng mga iba nating molecules such as yung mga oxygen and carbon dioxide that they can pass freely. Okay, labas-pasok lang sila sa cells. But ito, si fructose ninyo, it needs GLUT5 transporter. Please do take note. It is metabolized to intermediates of glycolysis. And the problems with fructose absorption, this is a good to know, and metabolism are relatively more common than with other sugars. So yung mga fructose disorders natin, they are the more common diseases na na-encounter ng ating mga patients other than the other sugars. So good to know lang naman po yun. So this is the pathway of fructose metabolism. I won't be requiring you to memorize this, pero mas maganda na alam nyo kung saan siya nag-umpisa at kung ano yung product niya. So kung mapapansin nyo, parati tayong merong enzymes involved, meron din tayong products involved. So mag-umpisa tayo kay fructose. Okay? So ano po yung enzyme that is being needed for it to be degraded? That is what we call your fructokinase. Okay, so kung mapapansin yung mga enzymes, ASE lang, and then coming from kung ano yung product na or ano yung pinakang substance na kanyang dinedegrade, doon po nanggagaling yung kanyang root word. In this case, fructokinase is degrading your fructose. So the end goal is para makarating siya dun sa glycolysis and then doon na tuloy-tuloy na yung iba't ibang pathway involved. So let us just read. The metabolism of fructose occurs principally in the liver and to a lesser extent in the small intestinal mucosa and proximal epithelium of the renal tube, because these tissues have both your fructokinase and then your aldolase B. Okay, these are needed. These two are needed to be your fructose to be able for it to be degraded. Next, what if naman po ang isang patient or ang isang bata ay walang kinukonsume na fruits? Okay? Wala siyang kinukonsume na fruits for their everyday lives. Ibig sabihin, wala pong synthesis of fructose na maaaring mangyari. Huwag mo mag-alala. Hindi naman ibig sabihin, hindi na makakapag-convert yung other sugars mo para maging fructose siya. Meron pang ibang involved na pathway. If ever man na hindi ka nagko-consume ng fructose sa iyong diet, that is what we call your polyol pathway. Okay, what does your polyol pathway do? It is fructose can be synthesized from glucose in the polyol pathway. In short, ito siya, glucose papuntang sorbitol through aldose reductase, papuntang fructose. What if nga naman po, wala kang kinukonsume na fructose or any sugar or any fruits in your diet? Pwede nang pumasok dyan yung iyong polyol pathway. Tandaan, glucose to sorbitol to fructose. Yun lang siya. In a nutshell, ayun lang siya. Fructose can be synthesized from glucose in the polyol pathway. The polyol pathway is named for the first step of the pathway in which sugars are reduced to sugar alcohol by the enzyme, or what we call aldose reductase. Please do take note that glucose is reduced to the sugar alcohol sorbitol, and sorbitol is then oxidized to fructose. So kung matatandaan, sinabi ko po na sa inyong medicine proper, tatanungin kayo ng mga prof nyo ng each step or each reaction, ilan yung nagbubuong NADPH, ilan yung na-oxidize na ganitong reaction. Ganun po siya mai-encounter sa inyong medicine. So dito, basta tandaan nyo lang pag sinabing polyol pathway, glucose, sorbitol, fructose. Tapos ang usapan. Ano pong enzymes involved? Aldose reductase, sorbitol dehydrogenase. Yun lang. Okay? So ano po ba ang relevance ni polyol pathway sa ating katawan? Polyol pathway, this pathway is present in the seminal vesicles for our boys, which synthesize the fructose for the seminal fluid. So kung tatanungin, this may appear on your board exam and then on your analysis of urinary and analysis of urine and body fluids, kung ano yung main sugar that can be found sa inyong mga spermatozoa, yun po yung tinatawag natin fructose. Spermatozoa uses fructose as its major fuel source. Kung matatandaan, moving ang ating mga spermatozoa. So magkaiba po si semen sa spermatozoa. Balikan nyo sa inyong anatomy and physiology ang pinagkaiba ni semen kay spermatozoa. Again, your spermatozoa uses fructose as a major fuel source while in the seminal fluid and then switch to glucose once in the female reproductive tract. So kaya po siya moving yung ating mga spermatozoa kasi it uses sugar nga naman, okay, in the form of fructose. Pag naman po nandun na siya sa ating female reproductive tract, nagsiswitch na siya into glucose. Again, tandaan sa ang inyong mga spermatozoa, it contains fructose. It uses as its major fuel source for it to be able to move. So these are the disorders of your fructose metabolism. You have your essential fructosuria and then your hereditary fructose intolerance. Let us just discuss the letter A, wherein your essential fructosuria is caused by fructokinase deficiency. Please do take note. Autosomal recessive and benign. Fructose accumulates in the urine. That is what we call your essential fructosuria. Meanwhile, the hereditary fructose intolerance caused by aldolase B, di ba? Nabanggit yung two main enzymes involved in the fructokinase or fructose pathway, your polyol pathway. Ito po siya. Ito yung mga inherited or mga disorders involved in the fructose metabolism deficiency, which leads to the intracellular trapping of fructose 1-phosphate. This condition is a more serious disorder compared to your essential fructosuria. Next, let us move on to your galactose. And then, yung main, what is your milk sugar? That is what we call your lactose. However, we will be needing the galactose para makabuo ng lactose. Okay, your galactose or your UDP galactose is used in the synthesis of your glycoproteins, glycolipids, and proteoglycans. UDP galactose also reacts with glucose in the mammary gland to form the milk sugar or your lactose. Kailangan po si galactose doon. So this is the pathway of your galactose metabolism. I won't be requiring you for it to be memorized, but rather we wanted to know the enzymes involved and then the product, yung pinaka-end product of your galactose metabolism. Wherein, we will start with the galactose and then ang enzyme that is being used to further degradation of your galactose, that is what we call galactokinase. Okay, and then the end product is the glycolysis or the gluconeogenesis. Okay po. Next, these are the disorders of the galactose metabolism. Mas ma-enhance further yung knowledge nyo with regards to these disorders in the clinical chemistry. Sobrang masaya siyang pag-aralan. Okay, so dito may overview na kayo. For the classic galactosemia, it is an autosomal recessive disorder caused by the deficiency of galactose 1-phosphate uridyl transferase. Number 2, for the galactokinase deficiency, it is a benign autosomal recessive disorder caused by deficiency of galactokinase. When galactokinase is deficient, galactose builds up. In the lens of the eye, galactose reductase and aldose reductase converts this excess galactose into galactitol. Galactitol causes the entry of water into the eye by osmosis. Excuse me. Then leads to the development of your cataracts. Next naman pong sugar na pag-uusapan natin is si lactose. Okay, ito yung pathway niya. Okay, kung mapapansin nyo, yung mga sugar natin, nag-uumpisa siya parati sa sugar. And then may mga dinadaanan siyang initial reaction or different types of reaction na kung saan involve yung enzyme, involve yung product. Pero ang kanilang main end product or yung parang pinaka-goal nila at the end of the product is through glycolysis. Okay, they will all end in the glycolysis. Yung iba naman nag-start sa glycolysis, yung iba nag-end sa glycolysis. And then these are the disorders involved in the lactose metabolism. We have yung number 1, yung pinakasikat, si lactose intolerance. So ano ba yung mechanism kung bakit nagkakaroon ng lactose intolerance yung other patients? It is caused by the lactase deficiency or the unable to tolerate milk. Ibig sabihin nun, kulang ka sa enzyme na lactase. Okay, hindi mo na-tolerate yung amount of milk na iniinom mo. Milk, cheese, may biyak pasta na may milk, parang gano'n, chocolate. These 3 types of lactose intolerance, we have your premature infants, the transient or congenital deficiency. Number 2 is the deficiency secondary to surgery where part of the small intestines is removed. And number 3, deficiency due to the mucosal cell damage. So these are the people's reactions to lactose whenever they consume lactose in their diet. Okay, they can experience weakness, the diarrhea, the vomiting, the muscle cramps, the rumbling, the flatulence, and the nausea. Next, we have your glycogen. Glycogen is the major storage carbohydrate in animals corresponding to starch in plants. Also, it is the branch polymer of a D-glucose. It occurs mainly in the liver and muscle with the modest amounts in the brain. Your glycogen also is the glycogen in the muscle provides a quick source of energy for either aerobic or anaerobic metabolism. Muscle glycogen can be exhausted in less than an hour during vigorous activity. Your liver glycogen serves as a reservoir of glucose for other tissues when dietary glucose is not available between meals or during fasting. This is especially important for the neurons of the brain which cannot use fatty acids as well. Liver glycogen can be depleted in 12 to 24 hours. So this is just a review. I believe I was able to discuss the mechanism of glycogen way back in our module 3 and 4 if I'm not mistaken. So again, yung mga ito yung storage form ng ating mga sugar. Okay, ng ating energy. In a way na pagka napuno na siya, na yung pinaka-storage mo, di ba, meron lang siyang certain amount na kung saan ito lang yung kaya niyang store. Pag napuno na siya, yung other sugar, yung other fats mo na, mapupunta na po siya sa different types of cell natin. Sa situation nating mga girls, marami po tayong adipose tissue sa ating stomach area. So, doon na pupunta ang ating mga fats. Next, the glycogen structure. Glycogen, the storage form of glucose, is a branch glucose polysaccharides composed of chain glucosyl units linked by alpha-1, 4 bonds with alpha-1, 6 branches every 8 to 10 residues. So these are the functions of your glycogen. Glycogen is found in most cell types where it serves as a reservoir of glucosyl units for ATP generation from your glycolysis. Your muscle in glycogen is an extremely important fuel source for skeletal muscle. For skeletal muscle, when ATP demands are high, when glucose 6-phosphate is used rapidly in anaerobic glycolysis. Number 2, in many other cell types, the small glycogen reservoir serves as a similar purpose. It is an emergency fuel source that supplies glucose for the generation of ATP in the absence of oxygen or during restricted blood flow. So yun po yung mga functions ni glycogen. Also, for the liver naman, so kung sa muscle, yun yung kanyang function. For the liver, glycogen serves as a very different purpose in liver than in skeletal muscles and other tissues. So kung yun yung function niya sa muscle, ito naman sa liver. Liver glycogen is the first and immediate source of glucose for the maintenance of blood glucose level. Please do take note of this. In the liver, the glucose 6-phosphate that is generated from glycogen degradation is hydrolyzed to glucose by glucose 6-phosphatase, an enzyme that is present only in the liver and kidneys. Glycogen degradation thus provides readily mobilized source of blood glucose as dietary glucose decreases or as exercise increases the use of blood glucose by your muscles. And then pakitandaan po, pag sinabing glycogenesis, genesis, okay, glyco, coming from the root word glyco, then genesis, meaning formation of glycogen. Pag sinabing glycogenolysis, it is the breakdown of your glycogen. Madali naman pong tandaan yan. So itong nakikita nating schematic diagram, this is how your glycogen is being produced or performed and breaking down into. So ito, kung paano siya nagbe-breakdown, okay, hindi lang po ATP at hindi lang glycogen ang nagbe-breakdown, pati yung mga medtech na nag-aaral. De, joke lang. Next is how is your glycogen are being formed from the glucose. Hindi po natin siya kailangan kabisaduhin, pero mas maganda na alam natin siya. In a way na sa glycogen, okay, ito po yung enzyme involved, the branching enzyme, magiging glucose 1-phosphate, magiging glucose 6-phosphate, and then ang end product ay magiging glucose. So for the formation naman of your glycogen from the glucose, glucose 6-phosphate, glucose 1-phosphate, and then glycogen. So pabaligtad lang. And what are the enzymes involved? Ito pong nasa right side. Okay, so basically ito lang siya, yung paikot. And then these are the glycogen storage diseases na magandang aralin at magandang kabisaduhin. Hindi ko na po yan ibabanggitin. You have to memorize that on your own.